You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. And hey, I'm talking about how balanced is your prospecting pipeline. Now, stop and think about this. How balanced is it? Because I'll tell you what, there are 9 factors total, 10 factors actually you need to look at, but we're going to zero in on 3, and the show begins right now.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a salesman sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
Hey, today's episode is brought to you by RapidScale. At RapidScale, exceptional technology is powered by exceptional people. Hey, join the sales team at RapidScale, part of the Cox family of companies and a leader in managed cloud solutions. You can learn more by going to rapidscaledjobs.com. Hey, I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get closer to the end. Let's talk about your prospecting and how balanced is your pipeline. There are 3 things that you absolutely have to look at, regardless if you look at the other 7. Sometime in a future episode, I'll break down the other 7. The critical 3 are the size of the opportunity, the timing with which they're going to close, and the degree of difficulty. Now, salespeople sit there and say, oh, I put this into perspective. No, they don't. I see this all the time as I review pipelines, as I review what's happening with people. I see this all the time. What they do is they just have the size in there. They just have size. Oh, I've got enough to make quota, because that's the challenge. In other words, do I have enough in there to make quota? But what they don't factor in enough is what is the timing with which it's going to be and the degree of difficulty. Here's where salespeople get into trouble. I see salespeople, what they do is they chase the big opportunity. It's great. Hey, nothing wrong with chasing the big opportunity, but the big opportunity comes on a much longer timeline. And this is where things happen. In other words, there's no wonder they miss the quarterly number, because all the deals that they're chasing are out there 6-9 months. I've had many, many large deals that have taken upwards of 2 years to close. Now, if I put them in my immediate pipeline, my immediate forecast, I'm in trouble. At the same time, I see other salespeople, what they do is they have all these little deals that are going to close very quickly. And they might be able to make their number, but they can't sustain it because of the work involved. And that takes us to the degree of difficulty. The degree of difficulty is the underlying factor that is going to determine whether or not it should remain in your pipeline. I get very serious here on this because here's the situation. The degree of difficulty, if I've got to bring in a tremendous number of outside resources, the prospect I'm working with has an absolutely complicated, long, lengthy process with which to get even accepted to be able to be, kind of looked at, let alone become a customer of theirs, let alone become a client of theirs, a provider of theirs. What am I looking at? I'm looking at the degree of difficulty. Take each one of your deals right now that you have in your pipeline, and I want you to ask yourself, what is the degree of difficulty? What are the hoops that I've got to go through to get that deal to close? What I want you to do is I want you to look at it and say, okay, is this deal closable with just my skill set? Is this deal going to require outside resources? Who is going to be required? How am I going to get them? In other words, other subject matter experts within my own company. The degree of difficulty, how hard is it going to be with the customer? Because the customer's already told me, you got to go through a bid process. You got to go through procurement. You got to go through the budgeting cycle. What are these things? You've got to understand, you have to understand the degree of difficulty before you can even begin to assign a level of probability. And this is where salespeople get in trouble. They just look at the size, they just look at the timing, and then they assume that it's going to close next quarter. It's going to close. But the degree of difficulty is such that there's no way they're going to be able to get all of these players lined up, all the horses in the stable correctly, to be able to allow them to close the deal next quarter. It also begins to distort the amount of time and resources that you have for other opportunities. In other words, as you go through and you look at your prospects that you have in your pipeline, and if you begin to see 3 or 4 that are taking up an inordinate amount of resources, it's going to begin to call into question as to whether or not you're going to have resources to close other deals. Because resources are finite. Your time is finite. The most valuable resource you have is your own time. And you've got to stop and ask yourself that question. So here's the challenge. I want you to look at the degree of difficulty before you assign timing, because here's what I find. If the degree of difficulty is required of inside resources, I can control that. If the degree of difficulty is controlled by outside resources, I cannot necessarily control that, which means I'm automatically going to allow additional time. Just do this as a rule of thumb. This is going to get you out of a lot of trouble. Don't put that in your pipeline, say to close next quarter, if all of the resources that you need to try to close this deal are outside of your control. In other words, it's the customer. Customer's got to go through the thing. Add another quarter to it. Do yourself a favor, because otherwise what happens is you're going to get yourself into a short chase game where you're trying to circumvent. And what's going to happen is you're going to wind up, again, putting way too many resources, and it's going to hurt you elsewhere. Having a balanced pipeline of size, timing, and difficulty, absolutely key. Hey, I told you up front that the episode today was brought to you by RapidScale. Hey, they're exceptional technology and they're powered by exceptional people. As part of the Cox family of companies and a leader in managed cloud solutions, RapidScale helps businesses simplify IT and unleash innovation. Join the sales team at RapidScale and get ready to earn recognition and enjoy top-notch rewards and benefits. Connect below to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more and apply today at rapidscaledjobs.com. I said click below because we're going to put the link in the show notes for you. Hey, here's the deal. How balanced is your pipeline? I have a feeling right now you're probably taking stuff out of your pipeline. Yeah. Don't put it in there unless you have a high degree that you can deal with the difficulty, you can deal with the timing, and the size fits to make your number. Hey, I'm Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. You've been listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. Each week, 2 episodes, one like this, second episode, longer deep dive. Would you do me a favor? Leave me a review on your favorite podcast app. I do the show for one reason, to help you see and achieve what you didn't think was possible. Great selling.